landscape painting. We'll call it the view from up here. It's kind of the views reminiscent, at least the intention is to be similar to some of the views that you might see from some of the mountaintops throughout Pennsylvania, even northern New Jersey, where we see some fields and farmland across the flatter plains, and then a mountain range off into the distance. And get most of this painting done. Before everybody gets back from running errands. Get for brushes, and I'm using a mix of paints from painting, and just gonna go ahead and start putting in some shapes. Let's say about 2/3 of the way up. Is where these kind of earthy colors will end, and we'll start building in some depth with aerial perspective. Start cooling off. All we're doing is getting some basic shapes in here, trying to create the indication of some rows of trees and some spots where there might be fields. Various textures. It's going to brush. I'm going to go into some yellow ochre. In some of these spots, not all of them, but in some of these spots we're going to lay in some yellow ochre. And we'll get some green. Not really thinking too much about creating any illusions yet. Just more concerned with getting the canvas covered, having some interesting textures, and then hit the pause button, and we're going to do some work with paper towel. Doesn't look like much right now, and that's fine. Up on my index finger and use that to draw a little bit. Kind of a warm day here. Hoping to get some time outside in. Also got to be strategic if I want to get some painting in and still want to spend time with family. So we have out running errands, so I'm going to take the time to paint. There you go. Take the same brush, I'm just going to wipe it down. A little bit of linseed oil, wipe it down again. And I'm going to go in. And then also amongst some of the larger cloud shapes. A lot of this is going to get wiped away. You know what? Towel. I don't want this to get muddy, and some of it's dripping. It's fine, but just gently gonna wipe some of this away. Thin it out and create some interesting shapes. And blot some of that up there. Just gonna create some initial shapes and textures, some hints at what the clouds might look like. Leaning toward a dramatic sky of some sort. Here in this area, since the land is off in the distance and this is a flatter plane, we're going to see, you know, more of a striated kind of sense for the structures in the field. As you get closer, they'll be bigger. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a smaller brush just for, actually, no, I'm going to go back in with this. I'm just going to wring out some of the oil that's in there. I'm going to build up some of the darks a little further. So I'm going to take some of this blue, some of this red left up here in this puddle that's drying of lavender. I'm going to create my own lavender. I'm going to pull in some of the burnt umber. And we want this to be nice and dark and a little thicker. And we're just going to, in the areas where we want some heavier, warmer earth tones, we're just going to build that up a little bit. Okay. And we'll cool it off a little bit as we work back. symmetry here. We want to keep it interesting by using asymmetry to our advantage. And then we're gonna gray this out a little bit, a little more burnt umber, a little more blue, and a little bit of white. And we're going to start getting in the mindset of worrying even less about structure, more about just creating texture for the land that's further off into the distance. And since it's a cooler color, it will naturally recede. And we'll get a little bit of that there selectively in other areas. And then way off in the distance where that mountain range is going to be, we're gonna push it back even further. And we get some of this here. And some of the low-lying land, might be some shadows. We'll avoid laying that color in up close because we want that to pull forward. I'm not trying to paint any details, just painting shapes and textures and trying to create the illusion of there being depth here. Now I'm going to get a small brush. And let's see. That's not going to be that one. It's going to be this one. Okay. And we're going to get the mountain range in the distance set up. We're going to get a nice, cool blue-gray. Off in the distance. More blue. There you go. And we're going to desaturate it even further by getting some of that linseed oil in there. And we're not going to worry too much about the shape here. And if it drips, it's fine. And if it doesn't look uniform, that's fine. If it doesn't make sense right now, that's fine too. Okay. Just laying that in. That's the initial structure. And we're going to work in a little bit of this lavender. I'll definitely have to clean my palette after this, especially over here, and especially as we kind of run up into those foothills. We almost want to eradicate all the warm colors, not completely. Some of it can show through, but as we get close to the base of those hills in the background, and we want it to be blurry, devoid of a lot of detail. And we're going to lighten up select areas too. That might be a little too light. There you go. Close to the base of these hills, there's going to be some fog and some spots where it's a little lighter off in the distance. And we're going to get some of those in this area too. Now, what I'm going to do is get a little bit more work done in the sky before I get too far. And I'm going to use the same brush, and I'm just going to create a little bit of a more intense blue-gray, light pale blue-gray. Using that ultramarine blue. Tempted to bring some cerulean in, but I'm not gonna. Or cerulean rather. It's just a little too strong. And I'm gonna bring this into the sky. Get a little more weight in there. A little more weight in there. There we go. There we go. The sky is going to be the brightest part of the painting. My lighting here needs work. Let's experiment a little bit of a glare going on. We'll see how this works for us. Just laying in. A little bit of that sky color. And let's see, is it too dark? I think you can see okay. All right. I'm going to take some of that sky color, I'm going to put it into the hills a little bit. I won't cover it, I'm just going to create some indication of some striations and shadows and light spots within those mountains. Just using some of that same color. Same brush. There we go. Excellent. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same brush and I'm going to start working in some of my sap green mixture here. And I'm going to pull in some of my burnt umber. I'm just going to get a faded greenish brown. And I'm just going to use it in select areas toward the back of the painting, just creating some patterns. And when the opportunity arises, even, creating some perspective, indicating that some of the patterns that form maybe from a linear perspective standpoint, they grow a little bit bigger as they get closer. And then we'll do some other things to enhance that too in just a bit. All right, so I'm going to go into some of this more saturated, warmer, dark color here and scrub in some textures. Make it look like there's some variance, maybe some trees popping up. There we go. And maybe there's, some smaller things going on here too. We're going to do a little bit more work in the sky. I'm going to take this little flat brush. I might switch this out for something else in just a bit. I'm going to get some of this white on here. I'm going to try and mix in some warmer colors. And lighter color on which allows a little bit. And if the edges get a little fuzzy, that's okay. That'll create some three-dimensionality, some illusions. I got a weird shape going there. I'm going to fix. This brush a little bit. There we go. Some more of that kind of warmer purpley pinkish white into the sky. break up some of these cloud shapes, that's fine. Remember, these are not solid masses, these clouds. It's gas, so they're going to do all kinds of different things. Cool. I like what I have going on here. So we are, I don't know, are we 30 minutes in? Sometimes flies. Time just flies when we're doing this. So I think we're 27 minutes in. I'm going to move a little closer to the painting just so you can see a little bit better. Just going to work back and forth into where the sky would be and where these original cloud masses are that I laid in. And lighter. Cool. Alright. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work in a little, get some light. And I'm going to use this thin brush, or the smaller brush, mainly because I want to get some patterns with it. So I want this to appear flat and lifeless, but the further up are going to have shadows. That's just a little too dark. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. There you go, that's better. Still have some of that golden ochre color showing through. They'll still have, yeah, some of the white reflecting. Some of it will come through down here. There'll be some, perhaps maybe thicker clouds. Keep creating those indications a little bit, and then get closer to the right side and to the horizon. What's going to happen is we're going to see the clouds get a little lighter. I'm probably going to do a large, and it would be landscape format and get more of that mountain range in. But for now, you know, considering don't have a whole bunch of time, I figured I would just play around with this and get a quick painting in. And the clouds closer to the horizon are gonna, they're gonna lay in, and striations are gonna get a little bit more horizontal. They get more difficult to tell the difference between where they start and where the mountain range ends. And then we're gonna wipe this brush. We're gonna start working in some white. It's off to the right here. We're gonna make it gradually fade to a kind of a lighter, cooler, almost as if the light's coming from the right side here. Lighter, cooler set of clouds rolling through. Yeah, so where I am in Stroud Township, not too far from here, Bangor, the Bangor area, Rosetto, Portland, to see scenes like this where there's some farmland, and then when you're in a high spot you could see mountain ranges off in the distance. So that's what this is intended to kind of look like here. Some of my favorite scenes. And some of the most beautiful spots in the Northeast, actually, in my opinion. All right. And at one time, my great-grandfather owned some farmland in those areas. You also see this out closer, like in the Allegheny Mountain area. You see views like this too. So, and there's other areas of the country where you might catch a view like this, but with all the driving I have done, being in sales, these are the scenes that I've seen that I've always felt like I wanted to paint. And let's see, use what I depth and push these back a little bit. I don't want to have any solid shapes, but by bringing in some of this cooler grayed out color here, we might be able to landscape back a little. There we go. Good. Yeah, we're almost done. I might play around with a couple things here, but it'll all pretty much just be kind of messy efforts with the corner of this big brush and some dark warm paint. A lot of my contemporary painters who inspire so easy. Davies and folks like him, and there's so many free resources available. If you're interested in painting, you could obviously follow me, but you could also just do a quick search, Google search, painting demonstrations, and you'll be able to find someone maybe that resonates with you. You get some greens in there too. Now, style of painting, I guess we could call. Good. What I'll do is I will resist the urge to create a lot of illusions of detail, but I'm just going to put some hints in. If I can find a clean Q-tip, very good tool for this. And you know, we might just put a little branch poke, and I'm gonna fix it so it doesn't look so uniform and unnatural. You know, we might put some striations to make it look like maybe there's some farmland. We might build up some of these so they don't look so like just blocks of color. Well, I have some paint on there. Back through also with the edge of my brush, or one of my brushes, and a palette knife maybe, and scratch in some additional indications of there being, maybe some trees, trunks, and some lighter barked trees, and maybe some tree branches coming out. And it just tricks the brain into thinking there's a heck of a lot more detail than is actually there. That's it. So I'm going to call it done. This is at least as far as I'm going to take this painting. So nice little 40-minute painting. Intended to really just play around and create the illusion of, maybe an image of, being up on a hill looking across some fields at some distant hills and a nice sky. That's it. Simple and easy. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope to